Your cortisol is eating you alive. Not slowly, not metaphorically, biologically. Right now, as you watch this, your adrenal glands are releasing a hormone that is dissolving your muscles, shrinking your brain, and cutting years off your life. And the terrifying part? You feel nothing. That is the design. Cortisol is invisible, cumulative, and after the age of 50, your body loses the ability to clear it efficiently. It accumulates the way debt accumulates, silently, until the damage is already done. There is a number you need to know, a threshold. Above that threshold, cortisol stops being a stress response and starts being a wrecking ball. We will get to that number in a moment. But first, there is a second thing happening inside your body right now. Something ancient physicians noticed 3,000 years before modern science had a name for it. They called it Agni imbalance, the fire burning too long. They built a specific breathing architecture to extinguish it. Science has now confirmed exactly why it works. And there is a third piece, a hidden window, a biological timing mechanism that determines whether this protocol works or does nothing at all. Most people will never know it exists. By the end of this transmission, you will have all three. Body check-in. Place one hand on your chest. Feel your breath. Is it shallow? Fast? Irregular? That is cortisol doing its work. Remember that sensation. You will feel it change. Here is what cortisol actually does after 50. Your adrenal cortex sits above each kidney, two small organs, immense biological power. Under normal conditions, cortisol peaks in the morning and drops by night. A clean arc. Rise, fall, reset. That arc keeps you alert when you need to be, and recovered while you sleep. After 50, that arc flattens. The morning spike does not rise high enough to energize you. The evening drop does not fall low enough to let you sleep. The baseline creeps upward. You are running on a hormone that is perpetually misfiring, and the body has no natural mechanism left to correct it on its own. This is called cortisol dysregulation, and it triggers a cascade. First, your hippocampus begins to shrink. The hippocampus is your brain's memory and spatial navigation center. Cortisol destroys neurons there preferentially, not randomly, preferentially. Men with chronically elevated cortisol show measurable hippocampal volume loss over time. The research is precise. Second, your muscle fibers begin to break down. Cortisol is catabolic. It converts muscle protein into glucose. After 50, with testosterone declining, there is no countersignal strong enough to reverse the breakdown. You lose mass not because you stopped training, but because the chemical environment no longer supports recovery. Third, your telomeres shorten faster. Telomeres are the protective caps at the end of your chromosomes, your biological age clock. Cortisol accelerates their erosion. Every excess cortisol spike is a direct cut to your cellular lifespan. The ancients had a phrase for it: the fire consumes the vessel. Fourth, visceral fat accumulates around the organs. Cortisol redirects fat storage. It pulls fat away from subcutaneous deposits and concentrates it around the liver, the intestines, and the heart. Not the fat you can pinch, the fat that is invisible from the outside and catastrophic on the inside. Fifth, and this is the mechanism most people miss entirely, your mitochondria begin to fail. Chronic cortisol elevates systemic inflammation. Inflammation directly impairs mitochondrial membrane integrity. Your cells stop producing energy at the rate they should. You wake tired, you move slower, you recover less completely. Not because you are aging passively, because your cortisol is actively dismantling your cellular engine. This mitochondrial connection runs deeper than cortisol alone. There is a specific cellular switch governing this process, one that cortisol is the primary trigger for switching off. I will point you to that transmission at the end of this video. Because what cortisol starts, that mechanism continues. Here is the threshold I promised. Above 20 micrograms per deciliter in a morning saliva test, the damage accelerates exponentially. Most men over 50 never get tested. They simply age faster than they should, and they wonder why. Body check-in. Now here's what the ancients knew. The HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, is the control system for cortisol release. 3,000 years ago, Vedic physicians did not use that term, but they mapped the same system through breath. They discovered that nasal airflow is asymmetric, that the right nostril activates the sympathetic branch, the cortisol branch, that the left nostril activates the parasympathetic branch, the recovery branch. They discovered that you could switch between them deliberately. They called this the Surya Chandra Nadi, the sun and moon channels. Modern neuroscience calls it the nasal cycle and its relationship to autonomic lateralization. The discovery is the same, only the language differs. This technique is called Nadi Shodhana. In English, channel purification. It is documented in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, a 15th century text encoding practices that predate it by thousands of years. For centuries, it was passed from teacher to student in silence. The full biological mechanism was never explained. The instructions were simply given. And for most of that history, the mechanism did not need to be explained. The results were sufficient proof. Now we can explain it. Body check-in. Sit upright. Both feet on the floor, jaw unclenched, tongue off the roof of your mouth. This is not a relaxation exercise. This is a hormonal reset. Approach it that way. The architecture is precise. Right hand. Fold your index and middle fingers toward your palm. Your thumb controls the right nostril. Your ring finger controls the left. Step 1. Close the right nostril with your thumb. Inhale through the left. 4 seconds. The left nostril activates the parasympathetic branch. Cortisol signaling begins to dampen at the source. Step 2. Close both nostrils. Hold. 4 seconds. During this retention, intrathoracic pressure shifts. The vagus nerve receives a stimulation signal. The HPA axis begins to register a change in the internal environment. The body interprets the held silence as safety. Step 3. Release the right nostril. Exhale. 8 seconds. The extended exhale is the cortisol kill switch. A long exhale forces the heart rate down. Baroreceptors in the aortic arch register the pressure change. The signal travels upstream to the hypothalamus. Cortisol production begins to slow. Step 4. Inhale through the right nostril. 4 seconds. Hold. 4 seconds. Exhale through the left. 8 seconds. That is one complete cycle. The ratio is 4-4-8. The protocol is 12 cycles, done daily, morning and evening. Here is what the research shows. 6 weeks of daily Nadi Shodhana produces measurable reductions in morning cortisol. Not statistically marginal, clinically significant. The HPA axis recalibrates to a lower baseline. The morning arc begins to restore its original shape. The fire returns to its correct intensity. The ancient physicians described the result as restoring the fire to its correct intensity, neither too high nor extinguished. The modern description is HPA axis recalibration. Same mechanism, 3,000 years apart. Now for the third piece I promised, the biological timing window. Cortisol follows a circadian architecture. It peaks within 30 to 45 minutes of waking. This peak is called the cortisol awakening response. It is the single most important cortisol event of the day. If you perform Nadi Shodhana during this window, before the peak fully rises, you intercept the HPA axis at its most receptive point. The recalibration is deepest here. The reset takes hold at the source. After 50, this window narrows. The peak becomes blunted, irregular, harder to intercept cleanly. which is precisely why timing becomes more important, not less. The protocol is simple. Wake. Do not reach for your phone. Do not speak to anyone. Sit upright. 12 cycles of Nadi Shodhana before you consume anything. That sequence takes under 8 minutes. In those 8 minutes, you are intercepting the single most cortisol significant event in your biological day, before the cascade begins, before the wrecking ball swings. Place your hand on your chest again. Feel your breath now. Compare it to what you felt at the beginning of this transmission. If something has shifted, even slightly, that is your nervous system beginning to recalibrate. Now, one more thing. Cortisol does not operate alone. When cortisol dysregulation persists long enough, it disables a deeper cellular switch, one that governs how much energy your mitochondria produce and how fast you age at the cellular level. Once that switch stalls, breathing resets alone cannot fully reverse what has been lost. There is a video in this series dedicated entirely to that switch, the one cellular mechanism that cortisol damages most directly, and the 6 ancient methods that reactivate it. If this transmission landed for you, that is the next step. That shift is available to you every morning. The ancients encoded it. The research confirms it. The mechanism is clear. Your cortisol does not have to eat you alive. You were not given a body that degrades without instruction. You were given a breath. Use it like the instrument it is.